about the hardware for a few minutes and make sure we know what the heck we're talking about. Make sure we've got a good grasp on what the hardware is. The original SoundWeb London device is the BLU 16. The BLU 16 is what we refer to as the X1 DSP. That one has nothing to do with anything but relative speed, not 100 megahertz or 100 anything. And the BLU 16 has 16 I/O channels, meaning it has 4 card slots. Each card slot can have up to an input card or an output card, 4 inputs or 4 outputs. That's your basic DSP. Okay? If you take that DSP and you add CobraNet to it, then you have a BLU 80. BLU 80 is the exact same device, but it has CobraNet built in. CobraNet is a digital audio transport for sharing digital channels across Ethernet. Now, if we take the BLU 80 and strip out the DSP, give it just very basic DSP capability, then you end up with what's called a BLU 32. That's basically a CobraNet expansion device. More inputs, more outputs, depending on how you configure it. Allows you to get more channels of data into a BLU 80. So the original 3 devices, the BLU 16 is totally standalone, no digital network whatsoever. BLU 80, the BLU 16 with CobraNet. The BLU 32 is a BLU 80 with no processing. And that's a misnomer. We always say it has no processing, but the fact of the matter, it does have a little bit of processing. It just has a very, very small amount. It's just enough to do routing of audio on and off the CobraNet card, basically. So that's the original 3. Now, a few months ago, March it was, we released 4 new products. And the first of those is the BLU 160. BLU 160 is take a BLU 16, but give it 4 times as much DSP power. And give a digital network protocol called BLU Link. BLU Link we'll discuss in a little more detail here in a bit, but BLU Link is 256 channels of digital audio over Cat5e or better cable. Very short runs you can actually use Cat5, and by short we mean 30 or 40 feet. But for longer runs it's Cat5e, 256 channels, full bandwidth, non-compressed. If you take a BLU 16, or I'm sorry, a BLU 160, and take out the DSP, you have a BLU 120. So the BLU 120 is your BLU Link expansion device. More input channels, more output channels, whatever the case might be. BLU 160 and BLU 120 are by far going to be your most common devices moving forward if you want any expandability. You don't need expandability and just need a straightforward, here's the DSP, it's 4 in, 12 out, or 8 by 8 or whatever, it's never going to expand. BLU 16 is still a great solution. Now what about CobraNet with these new devices? The BLU 160 is the X4 DSP, which is 4 times as much processing as a BLU 16. 16 I/O channels plus BLU Link. If we give that device CobraNet also, that's a BLU 800. BLU 800 is everything, soup to nuts. You've got the X4 DSP, you've got 16 I/O channels, you've got BLU Link, you've got CobraNet, all in one box. It's not every day you're going to run across a situation where you need all that stuff in one box. But when you do, BLU 800 is the way to go. Just 1 second here. Yep. And then if we take the BLU 800 and give that no DSP power, just make it a BLU Link, CobraNet, on-ramp, off-ramp expansion box, that's the BLU 320. So those are the 7 devices in the family. And the original 3 are not going away. The original 3 still provide a valuable spot in the line. If you need DSP and CobraNet and nothing else, the BLU 80 is the only device that will do that for you. If you need just CodeNet expansion, the BLU 32 is the only way to go. If you need, expansion with no BLU Link, the BLU 32 is still the way to go. If you want just a straightforward, rugged DSP ready to roll with no network audio, the BLU 16 is definitely the answer. So the original 3 are not going away. They're being supplemented by the new 4. Do you have any questions on those? What the deal is with those 7 devices? It's important that we know them and keep them separate and know which one does what. Alright, cool. Well then, let's dive right in here. Take a look at this thing we call BLU Link. Find out what the deal is. Bear with me for a second while I launch London Architect. Didn't realize I didn't have it launched before. My computer just loves running London Architect and Adobe both at the same time. Oh, good grief. Talk about a couple of graphics hogs. Those 2 pieces of software both think they should rule the graphics adapter. Makes for some interesting conflicts. There we go. Load the design up. Okay, hit share. Not the singer. Everybody's got to be a smart aleck. I'm not abusing vocalists. Some days I think it was just a bad mistake when we taught you guys how to type. There we go. There's your full screen button back. I'll rename these real quick, because I don't like their naming. Well, okay. What I have here is 3 devices, one of which has got a bunch of background music going into it. One of them has got a bunch of microphone inputs and auxiliary inputs from our conference rooms going into it. And the other one is doing all of our output processing and feeding our various zones and recording and things of that nature. And I want to use BLU Link to link them together. Well, the first thing I'm going to need to do is on the back of each device, there's a BLU Link in and a BLU Link out. Those are just RJ45 jacks. They are not Ethernet. They are not Ethernet. You cannot plug them into an Ethernet switch. You cannot plug them into the corporate LAN. Well, you could, but nothing would happen. It wouldn't work. The BLU Link protocol is a daisy chain protocol. In other words, you go out of one device into the next, out of that one into the next. So the way we would actually wire them up is just like that. Okay? Now, how do we make the audio flow? Here we go. Let's go inside this BLU 8, or I'm sorry, this BLU 120, and right down here I have a BLU Link node. BLU Link nodes start life out with no channels assigned to them, because a node can be from 1 to 32 channels. And we assign channels by coming over here into Properties. That's not open on the screen. We can right-click and hit Properties. We click on the Channel Assignment button. Channel Assignment button brings up this dialog. Let me make it bigger here. See more. There we go. Brings up this dialog which shows us Channel 1 through Channel 256, totally unassigned. Nothing going on. Button. Go. Almost missed my cough button and blew up you guys' speakers, but we're good. So, from this list, we select which BLU Link channels we want to have on that node. In this case, I need 16 channels for background music, right? So I'll click on the first one, shift-click on the last one, and hit Add. And when I hit OK, those 16 channels They're going to show up right there on that node. All set for me to just wire it up, just like anything else in London. There we go. That's all I have to do. Those 16 channels are now going to show up on channels 1 through 16 of BLU Link on every device in the BLU Link network. Every device. Because those 16 channels are coming out of the first DSP, going to the second DSP. They're automatically forwarded on to the third DSP. You don't have to wire them through like you did in green. They automatically pass through. I go to the third device. Here's a BLU Link input node. Click up here under channel assignment. I can select those 16 channels. Okay. There's my background music. If, for whatever reason, in DSP number 2, I wanted to grab those same 16 channels, or maybe a subset of those 16 channels, maybe just 1 through 4, either one works. I can grab them there also. So a channel can only be used to transmit on by one device in the network. Each one of those 256 channels can only be assigned to one device. And whichever device is transmitting on that channel, it transmits to every single device in the network. Those channels, however, can be received and processed by as many devices as you want on the network. You can have the same channel going everywhere, background music. Or you can have a channel going just to certain locations. But in reality, the channel goes everywhere. You just pick it off the link wherever you want it. If you don't want them anymore, you hit remove. Your node becomes empty. So to transmit our microphones and our aux inputs, again, we right-click and hit Properties, or if Properties is already up, we click on Channel Assignment, and we'll just pick 17 through 32. Click, Shift-click, hit the Add button. And there it is, all ready. Be wired up. I go to DSP number 3. This node already has the background music on it. I can add those 16 channels to this node if I wanted to, because a node can be up to 32 channels. Or I can just right-click and add a new input node to BLU Link. And put 17 through 32 on that one. So I have 16 channels being transmitted by DSP1. I have 16 more channels being transmitted by DSP2, and they're all being received on DSP3. Let's not forget, though, I said when a device transmits, it transmits to every device on the network, right? So these 16 channels of microphone and aux, DSP number 2, they're going to every device in the network. Not every device downstream, but every device in the network. If I look in the 120 up here, DSP number 1, there they are, 17 through 32. I can pick those channels and bring them back into this device. That's because BLU Link is actually 256 channels each direction. You have two separate digital audio systems running at one time. They just share all the same data. So what's happening in here, the downstream side of the flow, 256 channels, starting at DSP1. DSP1 puts its 16 channels onto the bus. Actually, not a bus, but 16 channels onto BLU Link, and ships it over to DSP number 2, going downstream. DSP number 2 can pick anything it wants off of those 256 channels, and it adds in its own 16 channels, 17 to 32, and sends them downstream. At the same time, DSP number 3 is sending upstream 256 channels with nothing in it, because DSP number 3 is not transmitting anything. But those empty channels still go upstream. They go to DSP number 2. DSP number 2 takes its 32 channels, 16 channels, 17 through 32, puts them onto the bus, puts them on the BLU Link, I should say, and sends them upstream. Those 16 channels, 17 to 32, arrive at DSP number 1. If there were anything wired up here on BLU Link, then DSP 1 would add its 16 channels and send it on. Since there's not, it doesn't do anything. It just hangs out doing nothing. So it's a bidirectional 256 channel bus. Channel 4 in each direction is always the same. Channel 14 is always the same. Channel 36 is always the same. No matter which direction you go, it's the same digital audio. That way, every device has access to every audio channel, no matter what. Make sense to everybody? Did that answer your question about remaining devices, or remaining channels being set to transmit other devices, I hope? So we have these 256 channels going both directions, or each direction, I guess, and how grammatically correct we want to be. The cool thing about BLU Link, one of the cool things, I guess, is that even though you're not required to, if you want to, and if the network topology allows it, you can actually close the loop. Close the loop. Now, what's going to happen there is BLU Link device, DSP1, is receiving 256 channels right here from device 3. Well, device 1 is set to transmit on 1 through 16, right? So what it does is it takes 17 through 256 that just came out of device 3, it puts in its own 1 through 16, and it sends them downstream. At the same time, it's receiving 256 channels from DSP2. It takes 17 through 256, adds in its own 1 through 16, and sends them back upstream, back to DSP number 3. What's going to happen is DSP number 3 is actually receiving channels 1 through 16 twice. Channels 17 through 32 twice. Once downstream, once upstream. Channels 33 through 256 are arriving twice. The same audio on both of them. Now, as long as there is an downstream connection, as long as DSP3 can see number 2, it'll take its digital signals from number 2. But if there's a channel on the upstream link that doesn't exist coming from number 2, it'll take it from that link instead. So in other words, if I take out this cable, let's back up one step. If this cable is still in place, DSP number 3 is getting 16 channels, all coming on the straight downstream link. But if I pull this cable, now it'll be receiving 17 to 32 over this cable, and it'll be receiving 1 through 16 over this cable. No problems. Causes no interrupts, causes no conflicts. When you actually pull the cable out, there can be a split second of silence while it switches over. So you can very, very easily build a redundant network just by closing the loop. Now again, you don't have to. Not required. Don't panic if you get in a spot where the way the network is laid out just will not let you close the loop without spending extra money. You don't have to close the loop. Purely optional. But closing the loop does give you a little backup where if this cable goes away, you've still got audio. Worried about that? Don't worry about it. Bell kosher on that? A little bit confusing, but hopefully it makes sense, everybody. All right, I don't see any questions there, so. Okay. In the BLU Link channel assignment window, channels that have a transmitter and a receiver show up as blue. In fact, let's just delete this node. Go. So we can see, there we go. Channels 1 through 16, give it a second. Adobe, there we go. 1 through 16 show up as blue because they have a transmitter and a receiver. 17 to 32 right now are showing up in that yellowish-orange color because they have a transmitter but not a receiver. Do the same thing if it's vice versa. If you have a receiver but not a transmitter, we'll let you know. Yellow is telling you it's a warning. You're not doing anything wrong. It's not passing audio yet. It's blue, you're passing audio. It's yellow, you're not passing audio, although you haven't technically goofed anything up yet. If I go in here and tell this node transmit on 17 and 18, it says error right there on the node itself. When I go back in, that node or those channels are now pinkish red. When it's red, then you're in trouble. You've done something wrong. So blue means it's working. Yellow means it could work. Well, it's not right now. Red means it won't work. Unassign those. There we go. And BLU Link nodes can be mixed and matched however you'd like. Let's say for whatever reason, I'm doing some funky processing here. Let's say that for whatever reason I want to have a node with just my room microphones on it. I can take room number 1, 2, 3, go right down the line, and just pick all the microphone channels. Hit OK. Now I've got a node with just the mics on it, channel 17, channel 19, channel 21, and you can mix and match those any way you'd like. If I want to have another node with those same 16 channels on it, I just copy the existing one. Oh, wait a minute, we lost that ability, didn't we? Okay, I lied. These people do that for about 5 minutes. Graham took it away. But I can recreate that node easily enough. 2, 3, oops, wrong ones. Well, mics, not aux, right? There we go. 2 different nodes, both bringing the same channels into the device. Why would I want those? Well, maybe you've got something over here that needs those mic channels. At the same time, you've also got something over here that needs them. Maybe this is your actual input, and this feeds into an ambient noise sensor or whatever. Who knows? It allows you to do that if you want. Question just popped up. What the heck are you asking? Oh, limit to 30 feet? No. BLU Link is limited to 100 meters or 300 feet if you're using Cat 5e or Cat 5e or better. So Cat 5e, Cat 6, Cat 7, and that stuff. If you're using Cat 5, I think the official, Jerome, it was 150 feet, wasn't it? There's a shorter limitation if you're using Cat 5 instead of Cat 5e. But basically what that comes down to is feel free to use Cat 5 as patch cables inside your rack. If you're just inside a rack or inside a one rack room, Cat 5 will work fine. If you're going between rack rooms, you need to use 5e or better. 6 works, 7 works. I think 5e or better. That'll give you 100, like I said, 100 meters, 300 feet. Cat 5e or better. And, as long as we're talking about distance here, if you want to go more than 300 feet. 300 feet with BLU Link. BLU Link is not Ethernet. However, BLU Link walks and talks and looks enough like Ethernet that you can use a Gigabit Ethernet fiber converter to convert BLU Link to fiber. And it doesn't matter what brand it is, because Gigabit Ethernet fiber converters are all dumb devices. They take ones and zeros and just stick them onto a fiber as light pulses. So you can use a Gigabit Ethernet fiber converter to convert to fiber. If you go multi-mode or single mode, take your pick. Depending on which mode you go, you get the standard distance limitations of that fiber. So you'll have, 2.5 miles under one of them and 24 miles under the other one? BLU Link can easily span your facility on fiber, no problem. BLU Link making sense, everybody? Really a pretty cool protocol. Don't forget you can do the loop if you want, but you're not required to. Don't ever forget that either. Especially in situations where you've got an existing infrastructure, you've already got cables in place. You might not have cable in place to do the loop, so then it becomes your choice. How important is it to you to have a redundant cabling system? All your cabling is really professionally terminated, and it's all in conduit, and it's all protected, you're not that worried about it, don't need to close the loop. But you can. Okay, well, there's no questions about BLU Link. Then we're going to take a quick look here. Pause the screen, because nothing makes the training software slow down faster than trying to load a new design file. All the pop-up dialogues and stuff. Of course, software tries to keep up, doesn't work out so well. Let me load another design file, which looks stunningly similar. Just had a question here. You're going to make cards for BLU Link so you can connect to a console or other devices. It's one of those things that's not really up to us. It's up to the other manufacturers. If you think that would be a really cool thing, and you'd like to see it happen, honest to God, the best thing you can do is send an email to whoever it is you think should use it. If you think a Soundcraft console with a BLU Link port on it would be the coolest thing in the world, send an email to Soundcraft, letting them know that you think that would be great, and you'd love to be able to interface directly with your DSPs that way. If you think that a Crown Power Amp BLU Link on it would be the coolest thing in the world, send an email to Crown, letting them know that that's a feature you'd like to see. If a situation like this, if nobody seems to care, it'll never happen. They get 30 emails, it's probably going to happen. That's kind of up to you guys to make it happen or not. Totally up to you. Okay, so this design file, we're going to take a look at a new processing object. Just came out in version 2 of London. Not covered in the training modules. It's the room combiner object. This design file is very much like the one we just looked at. I've got background music coming into DSP1. In this case, it's 16 channels of mono instead of 8 channels of stereo. Again, I have the microphone and aux inputs. Going through a little bit of processing, dropping onto BLU Link. And then the other thing, I have a couple things going on. The first thing is our mic and aux for each room are all pre-mixed before they go into the room combiner. And the reason for that is the room combine module is a room combiner. It's not a microphone combiner. It's not an aux combiner. Room combiner. If there are multiple sources in each room or in any of the rooms, they have to all be mixed down to one signal. There has to be one signal for room 1, one signal for room 2, one signal for room 3. If you put it in stereo mode, then that becomes 2 signals, but you get the idea. You have to pre-mix everything. That's what I'm doing with these mixers right here. And all of that goes into the room combiner. How does the room combiner work? Let's start off by just placing a new one. Let's drop one in right here. The room combiner comes in with 4 channels, or with 4 rooms. We can change that. It also comes in, unfortunately, see right here where it says use auto mixer IO. I have no idea why, but the silly thing defaults to yes. Most people don't use auto mixers, so you have to go ahead and turn that off. What that's going to do is turn off some additional inputs. Got 4 inputs here labeled chain, 4 outputs labeled threshold. Those are just for use on the auto mixer. Oops, sorry, wrong button. Just for use on the auto mixer. So we want to turn those off first thing. And now I have a number of inputs for my background music and a number of inputs for my room sources. If I have 8 background music sources, I just change the number of background inputs to 8. The number of rooms, I did not configure directly under properties. I configure my rooms by clicking on the configuration button right here. That pops this dialog up. And I go ahead and draw my room layout in there. Now you can do a lot of this stuff in the room layout manually or automatically. I prefer automatically because, I'm lazy. Okay with that. If I have a standard 2x2 set of rooms, that's fine. Say I've got a 2x3. I can place those in there individually by right-clicking and adding a room. Or, again, I told you I'm lazy, right? I prefer to add a grid and delete the stuff I don't need. It's actually a 2x3 that I need. I'll place a 3x3 and delete the extras. Now I have rooms 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I hit OK. And now I have 6 inputs for rooms, 6 outputs for rooms. I double click on this to go to the control panel. I have 6 channels worth of controls. Oops, hasn't come up yet. There we go. I have 6 channels worth of controls, 1 for each room. On this particular room combiner, the one I've already placed in here previously, I have 16 background music selections, and I have 8 rooms. And before we go any further, change the name of my background music sources because they have really dumb names. Let's change it to music 1 through 16. There we go. All right. Now, by default, when I open this up, this is the control panel for my 8-room combiner. I can go in here to room 1 and unmute the sources, unmute the background music. Maybe the background music is a little bit too loud. Source it down a touch. I can select an input for background music. And leave room 2 alone. Let's say room 3 is being used right now. But the sources are really turned down. The background music is turned down all the way. Let me unmute the master outputs. Oops. Turn down room 3. Turn down room 2 just a touch. Yeah, you get the idea. Now, here's what happens if I go to the room combining tab. On the room combining tab, I have 4 groups and 8 rooms. I'm on group 1 right now, the orange group. And you can change these colors too, by the way. If I click on room 1 and click on room 5, they're both part of the orange group now. If I go back to room controls, here's room 1. Here's room 1. Here's room 5. Notice that room 1 is muted now, and room 5 has its channels turned down. When you combine 2 rooms together, all of the settings, those 2 rooms, or 3 rooms, or whatever, will be changed to match the lowest, safest setting. In other words, gain controls, if one is at -30 and one's at -10, they both jump to -30. The room combiner will not turn the volume up, but it will turn the volume down. It has to make a match. Turning it up could blow something up. If one is muted and one is not muted, it's going to mute them both. Because it's not safe for the software to just automatically unmute a room. Who knows what's plugged in that room? So anytime you combine rooms, those rooms will share settings. Look at rooms 6, 7, and 8 right here. The fader levels for 6, 7, and 8, they're all at 0. I go back to room combining and add those. Group. Now I come back and look, all of a sudden they match channel room 1 exactly, and they are linked. If I change the value on room 1, they change with it. Jerkiness you see on your screen is from the training software, by the way. On an architect, it's totally smooth on my screen. Training software can only keep up with so much at one time. If I unmute channel 1, the other 5 unmute with me. I come in here and I pick group number 2. Put rooms 3 and 4 in group 2. I can pick group 3 and split room 7 and 8 off into their own group if I wanted to. I can turn them off, which ungroups everything. Should have shown you here. Put these back real fast. If they're linked and I change a room background music source, background music changes in all the rooms. Okay, that's the basic room combining. Now, a couple things to make it a little bit easier. Number one, if you right-click and hit Properties, or if your property is already open, you turn on Use Signal Names. Then go look at the control panel again. You actually have your signal names right there in the control panel. So if you had labeled this, jazz, blues, the rock station, pop station, all your different satellite music channels, those will actually show up. Second thing is, I can go back to the configuration page, and I can put in partitions. What's a partition? Partition is a virtual representation of like the air walls, the movable walls that have between rooms. If I double click on room 1 and click on room 5, you get a partition. Double click, click. What good are those? Hit OK. Back to my room combiner. Now on the room combine page, I can start seeing some really, truly intelligent functionality. And I can take these room combine, or these partitions, by the way, and I can assign them to control ports in the back of the Blue 80, Blue 16, Blue 32, whatever. And those control ports can be tied to physical contact closures, detect when the walls are open or closed, or they can be tied to the little infrared transmitter receivers that detect when the wall is open or closed. So the catering guys go out there, set up rooms 1 and 5 for an event. They open up this wall. That wall triggers the contact closure when they open it. It automatically links those 2 rooms as a room group. Look over here. They're linked, 1 and 5. Now catering goes in and opens up this wall P4. Those 2 rooms are automatically added to the next group. If catering then goes in and opens up wall P2, those 2 groups get merged because they're one big space. If we close these 2 walls, they get broken apart because now they're 2 separate spaces again. I have any combination I want. I take one room out of the group, it gets taken out. If I want to, I can also use the original method of clicking to produce non-contiguous groups. Now, what this is most commonly used for is, let's say I have this entire west end of the facility set up as a presentation room. Some corporate event is going on. I want to have room 8 be the green room for that event. Let's set my active group to 1 by setting it or clicking right here. And I click on room 8. And room 8 gets added to that group. It's added to that group, even though there are no partitions open to it. So now room 8 can hear what's going on in room 1, 2, 5, 6. It's kind of cool, isn't it? Now, the only downside to this whole thing is that if you pop that wall open, I mean, it's not a downside, it's the way it's supposed to be. But if you pop that wall open and you're expecting it to make those two into a separate group, it won't. Room 8 was already part of that group, so you pop open the wall to 4, it just drops 4 into that same group. However, if you close the partition, it forgot that room 8 was supposed to be in that group, and so it takes it back out. You can put it back in manually, but it takes it back out. Using partitions provides a really, really simple way to give the facility staff control over their room combining and make it so that they don't really have to think about it, because we mentioned contact closures to detect wall positions. If we don't have contact closures on the actual walls, that's fine. We could produce a custom panel that looks just like this with a little push button switch where each partition is. An LED inside each push button. And all they would have to do is walk back here and go, okay, let's see, I opened up this wall, this wall, this wall, and this wall. And push those 4 buttons, reflect what the walls look like. The rooms will combine correctly. Then come back and they say, okay, I closed those 2 walls, I'll turn those 2 buttons off. Rooms are going to combine correctly. All from just a simple wall panel or a 3 rack space button panel in your rack. You can have RCI Custom or one of those guys make you a real simple control panel just by using the partitions. Everybody who's done any ballrooms, convention centers, hotels, that sort of thing, this is a pretty cool processing object. Save you a lot of time and headaches. And it's also specifically designed to let you wire the system up in idiot mode, so to speak. You don't need expensive wall controllers to make this work. If we have, first these, we have rooms 1 and 2 both wired up, and actually with the room combine module, the most important thing I've found is when you install it, you want to go through and turn off all your mutes. Unmute everything. Because while mutes are a cute thing, they're almost never used in hotels and such. They'll have a wall volume control, and that'll be it. They won't have an actual mute. So we turn those off. Now, for each one of these 8 rooms, I can put a 10K pot in the wall tied to whatever, Cat 5, microphone cable, doesn't matter what you use, going from that 10K pot back to the blue box, wired to a control port, control the master volume. And if I turn the volume knob in room 1, it's going to change rooms 1 and 2 both. Now, obviously, it's better to use 2 buttons, an up button and a down button instead of a pot, but I could use a pot. Either one will work. So you've got immediate volume control from either room. No problem. You also have background music select from either room. If you have a wall controller with a resistor ladder to select background music, set room 1 to background music 7, that's what it's going to be set to. If you go into room 2 and change that to background music 5, they're both going to change to 5 because they're tied together. That make sense, everybody? What is the largest possible room combiner that can be created? You know what? I'm not entirely positive. I haven't played with it. The largest you can make automatically is a 7x7. And I don't know if that's an actual limitation or if that's just where somebody got tired of creating buttons. Nope, looks like it's a hard limitation. I can't add anything else. Normally, if I had 2x2 grid, I could add another 2x2 grid. Put these wherever I want. You can't move multiple rooms at once on this layout page, which is kind of annoying. So when you place them, you need to kind of pay attention to where you're placing them. Be careful where you right-click. Yeah, it's close. It's not quite there. You also can't move them around with the arrow keys like you can processing objects. So it could be a little bit annoying editing these, but how often do you have to do it? I mean, come on. You do it one time for each project and you're done. So if this is the way your rooms lay out, there you go. Up to 49 of them. Now, whatever you do on this control panel, or this configuration panel, I should say, is what's going to show up on the control panel for that room combiner. It's going to show up the way you laid it out. So if you have odd rooms, let's go in here and do, let me think, that'll work. Let's say we have 8 little meeting rooms, and they're attached on the end to a couple of ballrooms. Make our ballroom a little bigger. Yep. They're attached to the end to a couple of ballrooms, and you want your control panel to look accurate and realistic. You lay it out like this. When it comes time to come to that control panel, it's going to look just like you created it. Cool, eh? And yes, you can have multiple partitions attached to the same room. You can build the partitions exactly the way they really need to be built. Everything works just fine. Not paying a lot of attention to the order I'm building these in, but c'est la vie. Once it comes up, you'll see all the partitions just like I laid them out. Maximum number of combined groups. Well, if the maximum number of rooms is 49, the maximum number of groups would be 24. Because your groups are always 1/2 your number of rooms rounded down. If you have 49 rooms, it's impossible to need more than 24 groups. Can't happen. Can I add even one more room to that? Nope. It truly is a 49 limit. And, you know, where are you going to have 49 rooms, for Pete's sake? Good grief. It's just silliness. Oh, no. That's going to build that control panel for me. 49 rooms in it. Now, look at this. I love this over here on the left. How it tries to produce a discrete and different color for every single room. Isn't that cute? Every single group, I should say. And you can go back and change those. You know, if you want group 1 to be red, just change it red. 2 is green, just change the green, whatever. When you are creating room combine, a lot of times what we see in facilities is you'll have, let's say you've got 16 conference rooms or 16 parts to your ballrooms, but those are actually two separate ballrooms, for instance. In other words, you might have, I'll go over here and actually draw it up for you. You might have this layout, and then across the hallway, you have another 8 rooms. Okay? Now, you can put those into a single room combiner if you want to. It's not necessarily the right way to do it. The right way to do it would be if you have, be to create extra rooms for an outside bus, basically. If you have 2 of these 8-room groups across a hallway from each other, what I would do is in each one, I would create a 9th room, which is my dummy room, and that 9th room becomes the hallway, basically. Okay? And do the same thing on the other one. And then you take your 2 room combiners, close this, there we go. So you have 2 room combiners. This is for the north 8 rooms. This is for the south 8 rooms. Okay? And you want to be able to, if you want to, have some of the north rooms listening to some of the south rooms or vice versa. All you have to do is take the output of that 9th room, between one and the next and tie them together, and then do the same thing from this output to this input. Tie those 2 room 9s together, and then on your control panel, anytime you want north, let's say we have these 4 rooms all grouped, want to group them with the south rooms, we just throw room 9 into that combination, which will feed the signal from here into the other side and feed the other side back into here. You have to be careful not to create loops, but it works. I tried it. Going to the other one, same thing. Obviously on this one I would move this so this is up here on top, but same concept. You combine all these together, throw that in there, and now they're tied together. That's all you have to do. And you can do it with partitions. When the time comes and you need that, let me know. I'll help you walk through it. It's fairly simple, and it's better than trying to put everything on one big monster room combiner. Any other questions? We're going to take a short break. You know what? I'll answer that question after the break. So we can go ahead and get our break started here. Let me get the happy little clock on your screen. That's not going to work. Cut it out. Come here. Well, the way we're going to do breaks is it's not quite 1:02.